Captain Yuna sat alone in the darkness of Aegis 7, watching the stars through a wall of screens. The monitoring station floated quietly near Neptune, far from Earth, far from anyone who might accidentally find it. She had been here for 3 years now. 3 years of watching. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of hoping that the alarm would never sound. Tonight, the alarm sounded. A soft red light began to blink on her console. Yuna put down her cup of tea and leaned forward. Her heart beat faster, but her hands stayed steady. She had trained for this moment since she was 6 years old. Every human had. "Lieutenant Taiho," she said into her communicator. "Come to the command center, now." Taiho arrived within minutes, his hair messy from sleep, his eyes sharp and alert. He was young, only 28, but Yuna trusted him completely. He had finished top of his class in tactical analysis. More importantly, he never panicked. "What do we have?" he asked. Yuna pointed at the screen. A cluster of red dots was moving toward Earth from deep space. She counted them silently. 10, 20, 50. The number kept growing. 347 vessels, Taiho said, reading the data. "Large ones. Warships, probably. They will reach Earth in approximately 6 days." Yuna nodded slowly. "Send a signal to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. This is not a drill." Taiho's fingers moved across the keyboard. The message flew through space at the speed of light, bouncing through hidden relay stations that no alien scanner had ever detected. Within hours, every human leader on Earth would know. The invasion had begun, but Yuna did not feel fear. She felt something strange instead. Relief. After 200 years of waiting, the moment had finally arrived. She remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell her. Long ago, before Yuna was born, before her grandmother was born, humans had discovered something on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Deep beneath the ice, they found the ruins of an alien city. The aliens were long dead, destroyed by some unknown enemy. But they had left behind records, warnings, messages carved into metal walls that took decades to translate. The galaxy, those dead aliens had written, is not a peaceful place. It is a hunting ground. Species rise and fall like waves in an ocean. The strong conquer the weak. The loud attract attention. The quiet survive. Humanity had listened. In the years that followed, Earth changed. The great cities remained, but they became empty shells, maintained by robots, designed to look normal from space. The real cities moved underground. Billions of humans now lived beneath the surface, in vast networks of tunnels and chambers that stretched across every continent. They lived under the oceans too, in domed cities on the seafloor. They lived inside hollowed asteroids, disguised as dead rocks floating in space. And they prepared. Every child learned to fight before they learned to read. Every farmer knew how to use a weapon. Every artist could build a bomb. Schools taught mathematics and history and science, but they also taught tactics and survival and war. Not because humans wanted to fight. They did not. They wanted peace. They wanted to watch the stars and wonder about the universe. But they knew, deep in their bones, that peace had to be protected. Yuna's grandmother had been one of the architects of this transformation. She had helped design the tunnel networks beneath Asia. She had died 10 years ago, at the age of 92, never knowing if her work would be needed. Yuna wished she could tell her now. Your work was not wasted. We are ready. The next few days passed in tense silence. Yuna watched the alien fleet grow closer on her screens. She studied their ships, their formations, their energy signatures. Taiho analyzed their probable weapons and defenses. They sent every piece of information back to Earth. Dr. Yunji, the lead scientist of Project Stillwater, contacted them on the 4th day. Her face appeared on the screen, calm and serious. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Captain Yuna," she said, "we have identified the invaders. They are called the Verith Dominion, a reptilian species. They have conquered 14 worlds in the last 1,000 years. They see themselves as harvesters, taking resources and slaves from weaker civilizations. How strong are they?" Yuna asked. "Strong enough to destroy us if they knew what we really are. But they do not know. Their scans show only our surface cities. They see a population of 2 billion primitive humans. They think we are easy prey." Yuna smiled grimly. "They are wrong." Yunji nodded. "We have activated all defense protocols. The First Fleet is awakening. Admiral Doan sends his regards. He says he's been waiting his whole life for this." The First Fleet, 3,000 warships hidden inside asteroids and comets, disguised as space debris, built in secret over generations. The Verith had flown right past them without noticing. They had no idea that those dead rocks contained weapons powerful enough to crack planets. On the 6th day, the Verith arrived. Their fleet spread across the sky above Earth like a dark cloud. The largest ship, a massive vessel covered in spikes and armor, positioned itself above North America. A signal burst from it, broadcasting in a dozen languages. The Verith had been watching Earth's radio signals for years. They knew how to speak. "People of Earth," the message said, "we are the Verith Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender peacefully, and some of you will be allowed to live as servants. Resist, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond." In the underground command center beneath Siberia, Supreme Commander GA listened to the message. She was 73 years old, small and thin, with white hair and a face like carved stone. She had trained for this moment since childhood. Her mother had trained for it too, and her grandmother and her great-grandmother. 5 generations of her family had prepared for a war that might never come. Now it had come. GA looked around the room at her officers. She saw fear in some eyes, determination in others. But mostly she saw readiness. These people knew what to do. They had practiced it 1,000 times. "Send the response," GA said quietly. A young communications officer typed quickly. The message went out to the Verith fleet, broadcast openly for all to hear. "We decline your offer. Leave now, and we will let you go. Stay, and you will die here. This is your only warning." Aboard the Verith command ship, Fleet Master Gorath read the message and laughed. He was a massive creature, covered in green scales with teeth like knives and eyes like yellow fire. He had conquered 6 worlds personally. He had never lost a battle. "These primitives have courage," he said to his officers. "I respect that. But courage without power is meaningless. Begin the landing. Take their cities. Show them what the Dominion does to those who resist." Thousands of Verith soldiers loaded into dropships. The ships fell toward Earth like metal rain, heading for the great cities that dotted the continents. New York, Tokyo, London, Cairo. The Verith expected to find civilians, police, maybe a few weak soldiers. They found nothing. The cities were empty. The buildings were real. The streets were clean, but no one was there. The Verith soldiers searched block after block, finding only silence. Confusion spread through their ranks, and then the asteroids began to move. All around the solar system, the dead rocks that the Verith had ignored came alive. Hatches opened. Engines fired. 3,000 human warships emerged from their hiding places, surrounding the Verith fleet in a ring of steel and fire. Admiral Dahan, standing on the bridge of his flagship, opened a channel to the Verith command ship. "Fleet Master Gorath," he said calmly, "you should have kept flying." And the battle for Earth began. Fleet Master Gorath stood frozen on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, his yellow eyes wide with shock. The tactical display in front of him had changed completely in the span of seconds. Where there had been empty space, now there were thousands of red dots. Enemy ships. Human ships. Ships that had appeared from nowhere like ghosts rising from graves. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." His officers scrambled around him, shouting orders, trying to make sense of the chaos. The Vareth fleet was caught in a trap. Human warships surrounded them on all sides, blocking every escape route. And they were not the primitive vessels Gorath had expected. These ships were sleek and fast, covered in weapons that his scanners could not identify. Where did they come from? Gorath demanded. How did we miss them? His chief scanner officer, a nervous young Vareth named Keth, studied his instruments with shaking hands. They were disguised, Fleet Master, hidden inside asteroids and comets. Our scanners read them as dead rocks. We flew right past them. Gorath slammed his fist against the console, cracking the metal. 200 years. These humans had been hiding for 200 years, building ships in secret, waiting for someone to come. And he had walked right into their trap like a fool. But Gorath had not conquered 6 worlds by giving up easily. He turned to his weapons officer. Target the nearest human ships. Fire everything we have. We will break through their lines and escape. The Eternal Conquest shuddered as its massive weapons came online. Beams of green energy lanced out toward the human fleet, bright enough to blind anyone watching. The shots hit their targets perfectly and did nothing. The human ships absorbed the attacks like they were nothing. Their shields glowed briefly, then stabilized. Not a single ship was destroyed. Garth felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear, not far away. In a hollowed comet near Saturn, Admiral Dohon watched the battle unfold on his own tactical display. He was 60 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face full of scars from training accidents. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Every simulation, every drill, every sleepless night studying alien weapons and tactics. It had all led here. Their weapons are exactly as we predicted, said his tactical officer, a young woman named Minji, strong against normal materials. But our shields are made from the alloy we found on Europa. It absorbs energy-based attacks. Dawn nodded. The ruins on Europa had given humanity many gifts. The aliens who built that city had fought against the Vareth centuries ago. They had lost, but their technology survived. Humanity had spent 200 years studying it, copying it, improving it. Now that technology would save them. Begin attack pattern Omega 7, Dohon ordered. Focus on their command ships. Cut off the head, and the body will fall. The human fleet moved like a single organism, flowing around the Vareth ships with perfect coordination. They had practiced this dance 1,000,000 times in simulations. Now they performed it for real. Meanwhile, aboard the Eternal Conquest, someone else was watching the battle. Sub-Commander Kyong looked like a member of one of the servant species the Vareth had conquered long ago. Small, thin, with pale skin and large dark eyes. The Varath used his kind as translators and servants, never suspecting that some of them were not what they appeared to be. Kyong had been born on Earth. He had volunteered for this mission 30 years ago, knowing he would probably never come home. He had undergone surgery to change his appearance, learned to speak a dozen alien languages, and allowed himself to be captured by the Vareth during one of their raids. For 3 decades, he had worked his way up through their ranks, gathering information, sending secret messages back to Earth. Now his mission was almost complete. He moved through the chaos of the ship, ignored by the panicking Vareth soldiers. Everyone was too busy to notice one small servant. He made his way to the engine room, where massive power cores hummed with energy. Kyong knew exactly what to do. He had memorized the blueprints of Vareth ships years ago. He opened a panel, found the right wires, and began his work. In 10 minutes, the Eternal Conquest would lose power to its shields. In 15 minutes, it would be unable to jump to hyperspace. Fleetmaster Goroth would be trapped outside. The battle raged. Human ships darted between the larger Varoth vessels, hitting them with weapons they had never seen before. Missiles that phased through shields. Beams that cut through armor like paper. Bombs that created tiny black holes, swallowing everything nearby. The Varoth fought back desperately, but they were losing. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant flowers of fire. Their formations fell apart as captains panicked and tried to flee in different directions. But there was nowhere to go. The humans had surrounded them completely. On Earth's surface, the Varoth ground troops discovered their own nightmare. The soldiers who had landed in the empty cities tried to contact their ships for orders. They received only static. Communications were jammed. They were alone. Colonel Minho watched them from a surveillance drone, his face grim. He commanded Earth's ground forces, 50 million soldiers hidden in tunnel networks beneath every continent. His people had been waiting underground for days, watching the Varoth land, letting them wander through empty streets. Now it was time to spring the second trap. Open the gates, Minho ordered. All across Earth, hidden doors opened in the ground. Elevators rose from beneath the surface. Human soldiers poured out by the thousands, surrounding the confused Varoth troops. The fighting was brutal, but short. The Varoth were good warriors, strong and fast and savage. But the humans knew every building, every street, every shadow. They had memorized the terrain since childhood. They worked in perfect teams, covering each other, communicating with silent hand signals. A young soldier named Sora fired her weapon calmly, taking down 3 Varoth warriors in quick succession. She was only 22 years old. This was her first real battle. But she had done this drill 10,000 times. Her body knew what to do even when her mind was screaming with fear. Her squad leader, an older woman named Hana, moved beside her. "You are doing well," Hana said. "Keep your breathing steady. Remember your training." Sora nodded, forcing herself to breathe slowly. The training was everything. 200 years of preparation had taught humanity how to fight without fear, how to act without hesitation, how to work together like parts of a single machine. Within hours, the Varoth ground forces were destroyed or captured. Not a single alien soldier escaped. Back in space, Fleetmaster Goroth watched his fleet die around him. More than half his ships were gone. The rest were damaged and scattered. He gave the only order he could give. "All ships, retreat. Jump to hyperspace. We must warn the Dominion." But when he tried to activate his own ship's hyperspace drive, nothing happened. The engines were dead. Somehow, someone had sabotaged them. Goroth roared with rage, searching for the traitor. But it was too late. Human ships surrounded the Eternal Conquest. Their weapons pointed at his bridge. Admiral Dohan's voice came through the speakers, calm and cold. "Fleet Master Goroth, your fleet is destroyed. Your soldiers are captured. You have lost. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated fairly." Goroth stood in the ruins of his command center, surrounded by dead officers and broken machines. He had come to Earth expecting easy prey. He had found a trap 200 years in the making. He closed his eyes and gave the order to surrender. The first battle was over. Humanity had won. But Supreme Commander Ga knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, the Varoth Dominion was waiting. They would send more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. The war was just starting, but for now, Earth was safe. The quiet world had shown its teeth. And the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. 4 kilometers beneath the frozen ground of Siberia, Supreme Commander Ga sat in the war room and studied the reports. The first battle was won, but the war was far from over. Vareth reinforcements would come eventually. The Dominion would not accept this defeat quietly. Around her, dozens of officers worked at their stations, coordinating the defense of Earth. Messages flowed in from every continent, every ocean base, every hidden asteroid station. The entire human race was awake now, moving together like one vast organism. A young officer approached GA with a tablet. "Supreme Commander, we have captured 47,000 Vareth soldiers. What should we do with them?" GA thought for a moment. "Treat them well. Give them food, water, medical care. We are not monsters. When this war ends, they will tell their people how we treated them. That matters more than revenge." The officer nodded and hurried away. GA returned to her maps, planning the next phase of the defense. Colonel Minho entered the war room, his uniform dusty from the surface battles. He was a big man, broad and strong, with a scar running down his left cheek from a training accident years ago. He had led the ground forces personally during the invasion, fighting alongside his soldiers in the tunnels. "The surface is secured," he reported. "All Vareth ground forces are eliminated or captured. Our casualties were light. 3,000 dead, 8,000 wounded." GA closed her eyes briefly. 3,000 lives. Each one a son or daughter, a friend, a lover. Each one trained since childhood for a war they hoped would never come. She would mourn them properly when this was over. "And the tunnel networks?" she asked. "Undamaged. The Vareth never got close to our real cities. They thought the surface buildings were all we had." GA allowed herself a small smile. The deception had worked perfectly. 200 years of building fake cities, maintaining empty streets, running robots that pretended to be normal civilians. All to make Earth look weak and primitive. All to make the invaders overconfident. "Supreme Commander," another officer called out. "Admiral Dawn reports that the space battle is complete. The Vareth fleet is destroyed. No enemy ships escaped." That was the most important news. If even one Vareth ship had escaped to warn the Dominion, everything would become much harder. But the trap had closed perfectly. The galaxy still did not know what humanity really was. GA stood up and walked to a large window that looked out over an underground city. Millions of people lived here, in homes carved from rock, lit by artificial suns, fed by underground farms. This was the real Earth. This was what humanity had built while pretending to be weak. She remembered her grandmother's words, spoken long ago when GA was just a child. "We do not prepare for war because we want to fight. We prepare because we want to survive. Every wall we build, every weapon we make, every drill we practice, it is all an act of love. We are protecting our children and their children, and all the generations yet to come." That was the doctrine of patience. The philosophy that had guided humanity for 2 centuries. Be quiet, be humble, be ready. And when danger comes, strike fast and hard, and without mercy. In a medical bay on the other side of the underground city, Specialist Sora sat on a bed while a medic cleaned a cut on her arm. The wound was small, barely worth noticing, but medical care was mandatory after combat. Every soldier was valuable. The medic, a woman named Jian, worked with gentle hands. She was 30 years old, with kind eyes and a calm voice. She had treated hundreds of wounded soldiers today, some with injuries far worse than sores. But she gave every patient the same careful attention. "How are you feeling?" Jian asked Sor a thought about the question. How was she feeling? She had killed people today. Vareth people, alien people, but still people. She had watched friends die beside her. She had felt bullets pass close enough to touch her skin. "I do not know," she said honestly. "I thought I would be more afraid. But when the fighting started, I just did what I was trained to do. My body moved on its own. Jian nodded. That is how it works. The training takes over. Your mind might be screaming, but your hands keep moving. Your feet keep running. 200 years of preparation, millions of drills, billions of practice sessions. It all comes together in the moment. She finished bandaging Sora's arm and looked at her seriously. You did well today. You saved lives. Remember that when the nightmares come, because they will come, combat changes people. But you are not alone. We all carry this burden together. Sora nodded slowly. She thought about her parents, safe in their underground home in what used to be called Korea. Her mother was a farmer who grew rice in vast underground fields. Her father was a teacher who taught children mathematics and combat in equal measure. They had raised her for this war, hoping it would never come, preparing her anyway. Thank you, she said to Jian. For everything? Back in the war room, Jihei received a visitor. Dr. Yunji arrived from her laboratory complex, carrying data tablets filled with information. Supreme Commander, Yunji said, I have analyzed the captured Verath technology. Their weapons are powerful but crude compared to ours. Their shields are weak against our Europa alloy projectiles. Their engines are faster than we expected, but we can adapt. What about their communications? GA asked. Can they send messages to the Dominion from here? No. We jammed all their signals from the moment they entered our system. They could not call for help, even if they wanted to. But we captured their communication equipment intact. We can study it, learn their codes, maybe even send false messages if we need to. GA nodded thoughtfully. This was good news. If they could deceive the Dominion, buy more time, they could strengthen their defenses even further. There is something else, Yunji said, her voice dropping lower. I spoke with some of the captured Verath officers. They are terrified, not just of losing this battle, but of what we represent. They have conquered dozens of species, and none of them fought like this. None of them were ready. What did they expect? Chaos, panic, primitive weapons, and disorganized resistance. That is what they always find. Young civilizations are noisy and careless. They broadcast signals into space, announcing their presence. They build cities on the surface where everyone can see them. They are easy targets. Yunji shook her head slowly. But humanity went quiet. We hid our true strength. We prepared in secret. The Varath do not understand how this is possible. Their entire strategy is based on attacking weak, careless species. They do not know how to fight an enemy that has been waiting for them. GA smiled grimly. Then we have an advantage. Let us use it. She turned to address the entire war room. Officers stopped their work and looked up at her with respect. Listen to me, Jihei said. Today we won our first victory. But the war is not over. The Varath Dominion will send more ships, more soldiers. They will come with everything they have. And we will be ready. She paused, looking at each face in turn. For 200 years, our ancestors prepared for this moment. They built these cities. They trained our soldiers. They sacrificed their peace so that we could survive. We owe them a debt that cannot be repaid. But we can honor them by finishing what they started. A voice rose with quiet strength. We did not choose this war, but we will end it. Not with hatred, not with cruelty, but with the patient strength that has always defined our species. The galaxy thought we were weak because we were quiet. They will learn that silence is not weakness. It is focus. It is preparation. It is the calm before the storm. Around the room, officers stood straighter. Fear faded from their eyes, replaced by determination. Now, GA said, turning back to her maps. Let us plan our next move. The doctrine of patience had carried humanity through 2 centuries of waiting. Now it would carry them through the fires of war. 3 weeks had passed since the first invasion. Earth was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Not the quiet of hiding, but the quiet of watching, waiting, preparing for what would come next. Admiral Dahan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Silent Thunder, orbiting near Saturn's rings. The rings stretched out before him like a river of ice and stone, beautiful and deadly. His fleet had moved here after the battle, using the debris as cover while they repaired their ships and planned their next moves. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "long-range sensors detect movement at the edge of the system. More ships incoming." Dohan walked to the sensor display and studied the data. Another Vareth fleet, larger than the first. 500 ships this time, led by a massive carrier that dwarfed even the Eternal Conquest. The Dominion had received no message from their first fleet, so they were sending reinforcements to investigate. They were walking into the same trap. "All ships, prepare for battle," Dahan ordered calmly. "Pattern Delta 9. Let them come to us." The human fleet moved into position among Saturn's rings, hiding behind chunks of ice the size of mountains. They would wait until the Vareth were close, then strike from all directions. The same strategy that had worked before, adapted for a new battlefield. Captain Hyunwoo commanded one of the stealth destroyers, a small ship called the Silent Blade. His job was to slip behind enemy lines and hit their command ships while the main fleet kept them busy. It was dangerous work, but Hyunwoo had volunteered for it. He was 35 years old, one of the best pilots in the fleet, and completely fearless. "How are you so calm?" asked his co-pilot, a young man named Junho. "We are about to fight 500 warships." Hyunwoo smiled slightly. "Because I have done this before. In simulators, in training exercises, in my dreams. This is just another day, another mission." He did not mention the fear that lived in his stomach, the cold knot that never went away. Every pilot felt it. The secret was not to eliminate fear, but to act despite it. That was what the training taught. That was what 200 years of preparation had burned into their bones. The Vareth fleet entered the solar system slowly, cautiously. They had expected to find their first fleet waiting for them. Instead, they found nothing. Empty space. Silent planets. No signals, no debris, no sign of what had happened. The Vareth commander, a scarred veteran named Dral, studied his sensors with growing unease. Something was wrong. 300 ships did not simply disappear. "Spread out," he ordered. "Search pattern. Find our ships." His fleet scattered across the system, looking for clues. They did not realize they were spreading themselves thin, making themselves vulnerable. They did not know that human ships were watching their every move from behind asteroids and inside frozen comets. Admiral Dawn waited until the moment was perfect. The Vareth fleet was scattered, their formation broken, their attention focused on searching. "Now," he said quietly, the human fleet exploded out of hiding. Ships burst from asteroid fields, emerged from the shadows of moons, rose up from Saturn's rings like predators, leaping from tall grass. In seconds, the Vareth found themselves surrounded and outnumbered in a dozen separate battles. Captain Hyunwoo drove the Silent Blade straight toward the Vareth carrier, weaving between enemy ships too surprised to react. His weapons officer, a woman named Boyang, locked onto the carrier's engine section. "Fire," Hyunwoo ordered. 3 missiles launched from the Silent Blade, phasing through the carrier's shields like they were not there. The explosions tore through the engine room, crippling the massive ship. Without its engines, the carrier was helpless. All across the system, similar scenes played out. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck hard, then vanished before the Vareth could respond. The aliens tried to form defensive groups, but the humans were too fast, too coordinated. It was like fighting smoke. On one of the Vareth destroyers, a sub-commander named Threx watched in horror as ship after ship disappeared from his tactical display. He had fought many battles in his long career. He had never seen anything like this. "They are everywhere," he muttered. "How can they be everywhere?" He did not understand that humans had been preparing for this exact scenario for 2 centuries. Every possible battle, every possible formation, every possible strategy had been simulated millions of times. The human commanders knew exactly what to do in every situation because they had practiced it all before. The Battle of Saturn's Rings lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Vareth reinforcement fleet was destroyed. 487 ships reduced to debris floating among the ice. Human losses were minimal. 12 ships damaged, 3 destroyed. Less than 1,000 lives lost. Back on Earth, medic Jian worked in the underground hospitals, treating wounded soldiers and captured Vareth prisoners with equal care. The aliens were terrified at first, expecting torture and execution. Instead, they received food, medicine, and gentle treatment. "Why do you help us?" one wounded Vareth asked her. "We came to conquer you. We came to make you slaves." Jian cleaned his wounds carefully before answering. "Because cruelty creates more enemies. Kindness sometimes creates friends. And because this is who we are. We prepared for war, but we never lost our humanity." The Vareth stared at her with confused eyes. In his entire life, he had never seen a conquered species show mercy. It did not fit anything he understood about the universe. In the Siberian Command Center, Supreme Commander Jie received reports from every front. 2 Vareth fleets destroyed. Minimal losses. The enemy still did not know how badly they had miscalculated. Elder Architect Sun Ho joined her in the war room, moving slowly in his wheelchair. He was 97 years old, the last surviving architect of Earth's underground cities. His mind was still sharp, even if his body had grown weak. "You built well," Jihei told him. "Your city saved billions of lives." Sun Ho smiled, but his eyes were wet with tears. "I never wanted them to be needed. I spent my whole life hoping this day would never come. But I prepared anyway. We all did." He looked at the map showing Earth's defenses, the network of tunnels and hidden bases that he had designed 60 years ago. "When I was young," he said, "people asked me why I worked so hard on something that might never be used. I told them the same thing my teacher told me. Preparation is love. Every wall I built, every tunnel I dug, it was a letter to the future. A promise that we would be ready." Jie put her hand on his shoulder. "The future thanks you. I thank you. All of humanity thanks you." Dr. Yunji arrived with new intelligence reports. The Vareth Dominion was finally getting worried. 2 fleets had entered human space and disappeared without a trace. They were sending scouts to investigate, cautious probes to test what had happened. "They are scared now," Yunji said. "For the first time in centuries, the Vareth do not understand their enemy. They are used to quick victories against weak species. This is something new." Jihei nodded thoughtfully. "Good. Fear makes people make mistakes. But we must be careful. The Dominion has thousands of ships. If they decide to send their full force, even we will struggle. Then we need to end this quickly," said Admiral Doan, his image appearing on a screen from his ship near Saturn. "I have a proposal. Instead of waiting for them to come to us, we go to them. Strike their forward bases. Show them that we can reach them wherever they are." It was a bold plan. Dangerous, but it would send a message that the Vareth could not ignore. Humanity was not just defending anymore. Humanity was fighting back. Jie looked around the room at her officers, her scientists, her soldiers. They were tired but determined. They had trained their whole lives for this war, and they were not going to stop now. "Prepare the attack fleet," she ordered. "We are done hiding. It is time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." The harvest that the Varath had planned was being reversed. They had come to take everything from humanity. Instead, they were losing everything they had sent. And soon, they would learn that hiding from humans was no safer than attacking them. The quiet world had awakened. And it was hungry. 6 months had passed since the first Varus ships appeared in human space. 6 months of battles, of victories, of sacrifice. Now, finally, the war was ending. Admiral Doan stood on the bridge of the Silent Thunder, watching the Varath home fleet burn. Humanity had brought the war to their doorstep, striking at their 4 bases, destroying their shipyards, cutting off their supply lines. The mighty Dominion, conquerors of 14 worlds, had crumbled in a matter of months. The final battle took place above, a barren moon near Varath Prime. The enemy had gathered every ship they had left. 3,000 vessels making one last desperate stand. It was not enough. Human ships swarmed around them like wolves around wounded prey, coordinated and merciless. "Admiral," said Minji, his tactical officer, "the Varath flagship is signaling surrender." Doan closed his eyes briefly. So many dead on both sides. So much destruction. But it was finally over. "Accept their surrender," he said. "All ships, cease fire." The guns fell silent. Across the battlefield, human and Varath ships stopped shooting and simply floated, exhausted. Surrounded by the debris of war, Doan opened a channel to Earth. Supreme Commander Jihi's face appeared on the screen. Tired but proud. "It is done," he told her. "The Varath have surrendered." Jie nodded slowly, letting out a breath she seemed to have been holding for months. "Bring our people home, Admiral. The war is over." On Earth, the news spread through the underground cities like wildfire. People gathered in public spaces, hugging strangers, weeping with relief. Church bells rang, though the churches were deep underground. Fireworks launched, though they exploded against rock ceilings instead of open sky. Specialist Sora heard the news while sitting in a quiet corner of the military barracks. She had survived the war, though many of her friends had not. The faces of the dead haunted her dreams. She wondered if they always would. Her squad leader, Hana, found her there. The older woman sat down beside her without speaking. They watched the celebration through a window, neither feeling quite ready to join. 127,000, Sora said quietly. "That is how many we lost." I memorized the number. "I do not know why." Hannah nodded. "Because they matter. Every single one. We won this war, but we paid for it with blood. That is worth remembering. Do you think it was worth it? All the preparation, all the hiding, all the sacrifice?" Hannah thought for a long moment before answering. "I think our great-great-grandparents would say yes. They built these cities knowing they might never be used. They trained their children knowing those children might never fight. They did it anyway, because they loved us. They loved people they would never meet. Generations yet to be born." She put her hand on Sora's shoulder. "We are alive because of that love. Our children will be alive because of it. That is worth something. That is worth everything." In the Siberian Command Center, Jie gathered her council for one final meeting. The war was over, but the future was uncertain. Humanity could not go back to hiding. The galaxy knew about them now. They had to decide what kind of species they would become. "We have 3 options," said Dr. Yunji. "First, we could retreat. Destroy all evidence of our true strength and pretend to be weak again. Hope that no one else comes." "That will not work," said Colonel Minho. "Too many people know about us now. The Varath prisoners, the other species who watched the war. The secret is out. The second option, Yunji continued, is to become conquerors ourselves. Use our military advantage to build an empire. Take control of this region of space. Make ourselves too powerful to challenge. Jie shook her head firmly. No, we did not spend 200 years preparing just to become the thing we feared. We are not the Vareth. Then the third option, Yunji said. We reach out. Make allies. Build relationships with other species based on trade and mutual defense. Show the galaxy that we are strong, but also fair. That we can be trusted. There was silence in the room as everyone considered this path. It was risky. Trusting aliens who might betray them. Opening themselves to a universe that had proven dangerous time and again. But it was also the most human choice. The choice to hope instead of fear. To build instead of destroy. To reach out a hand instead of making a fist. We will do the third option, Jihei decided. But we will never stop preparing. We will make friends, but we will keep our defenses strong. We will trust, but we will verify. That is the balance we must maintain. Ambassador Hejin was chosen to lead humanity's first diplomatic mission. She was 50 years old, a former soldier who had become a scholar, studying the languages and cultures of every alien species humanity had ever encountered. She was patient, intelligent, and utterly unafraid. Her ship, the Open Hand, departed Earth on a warm spring morning. Thousands of people gathered to watch it launch. Rising from a hidden spaceport in the mountains of what was once called Korea, it was the first human ship to leave the solar system openly. Without hiding, without pretending to be debris, Hejin carried a message. Approved by Jie and the Council, to be delivered to every civilization they encountered. We are humanity, the message said. For 200 years we hid from a universe we knew to be dangerous. We watched and waited and prepared, hoping we would never be attacked. When the attack came, we defended ourselves. Now the threat is gone, and we emerge from our hiding place. The message continued. We seek friendship, trade, and peace. We have knowledge to share and lessons to learn. We welcome anyone who comes to us with honest intentions. But know this as well. We have been preparing forever, and we will never be conquered. Come to us as friends, and you will find friends. Come to us as enemies, and you will find the same fate as the birth. Elder Architect Sunho died 3 weeks after the war ended. He passed peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by family, knowing that his life's work had saved his species. His funeral was attended by millions, watched by billions more on screens throughout the underground cities. Captain Yuna spoke at the ceremony. She had returned from Aegis 7 after the war, finally able to come home after years of watching alone in the dark. Sunho once told me that preparation is love, she said. I did not understand what he meant until now. Every tunnel he dug, every city he designed, every defense he built, it was a gift to people he would never meet. That is the deepest kind of love there is. Love for the future. Love for humanity itself. She looked out at the crowd, at the faces of soldiers and farmers and teachers and children. We are here because people like Sunho loved us before we were born. Now it is our turn. We must build and prepare and protect, not for ourselves, but for the generations yet to come. That is how we honor the dead. That is how we earn the future they gave us. 1 year later, Lieutenant Taiho stood where Yuna had once stood, watching the stars from a new monitoring station. But now he was not watching for enemies. He was watching for friends. A signal appeared on his screen. A new species, reaching out from a distant star system. They had heard about humanity's victory over the Varath. They wanted to talk. Taiho smiled and began recording a response. The first of many conversations that would follow. Earth was quiet again. But it was a new kind of quiet. Not the quiet of fear, but the quiet of confidence. Not the quiet of hiding, At the quiet of watching with open eyes, the universe was still dangerous. It always would be. But humanity was ready. They had been preparing forever. And now, finally, they were no longer alone. In the underground cities of Earth, life continued. Children went to school, learning mathematics and history and the arts of war. Farmers grew food in vast underground fields. Scientists studied captured alien technology, always looking for new ways to protect their people. And every night, in homes across the planet, parents told their children the same story. The story of a species that went quiet when the universe proved hostile. A species that hid and prepared and waited. A species that was underestimated by every enemy who found them. A species that was never conquered. The story of humanity. The story that would echo through the galaxy for 1,000 years. The story that was only just beginning.